Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, if you're anything like me, you've probably glanced down at your wrist today, checked your fitness tracker, and just felt this sudden wave of guilt because you haven't hit that magical 10,000 step goal. We have all been there, right? Maybe even shaking your wrist while sitting on the couch just to get those last 50 steps before midnight. We live in a world completely obsessed with wearable tech and arbitrary daily health metrics. But what if the data on your wrist is actually tricking your brain? Today, we're going to unpack the secret science of habits, health, and how the way we actually think about our movement might literally be more important than the movement itself. Let's dive right in with a pretty staggering reality. 76% of American adults completely fail to meet physical activity guidelines. I mean, when the targets are set so high and we constantly see that we're falling short, it creates this pervasive sense of failure. We are bombarded with messages that sitting is the new smoking, which honestly leaves most of us believing our daily physical activity is just inadequate. But does knowing this actually help us at all? Section 1. The Fitness Tracker Paradox. So, let's look a bit closer at our modern reliance on these wearables. We buy these devices assuming that raw data is just going to magically translate into motivation and eventually better health, which brings us to a fascinating question. Does your fitness tracker actually make you walk more? To answer this, we're looking at a brilliant longitudinal study from Stanford University, published in the Journal of Medical Internet Research. The researchers took a group of adults, gave them Apple Watches, and tracked their behavior over 5 weeks. Now, here's the kicker. The participants had absolutely no idea their actual steps were sometimes being manipulated behind the scenes. They just thought they were testing a new algorithm. Just take a look at the baseline versus the treatment period here. Giving people accurate step trackers for 5 weeks resulted in 0 significant increase in their actual physical movement. Literally none. They went from 6,751 steps to 6,981 steps. Statistically speaking, that is a flat line. And their self-reported activity, that didn't really change either. So the tracker, all on its own, did not make them move more. Section 2. Activity Adequacy Mindset. But here is the incredible twist. Even though their actual step counts didn't change at all, the participants who received accurate tracking data still experienced improved mental health, lower anxiety, better diets, and get this, even higher aerobic capacity. How is that even possible without more exercise? Well, it brings us to something called the Activity Adequacy Mindset, or AAM. Basically, this is your core belief about whether your physical activity is enough and whether it's actually benefiting your health. Now, why does this matter to us? Because just becoming aware of their daily steps made these participants realize they were moving more than they initially thought. It completely shifted their mindset. They started believing their activity was adequate, and that belief alone triggered actual psychophysiological benefits. It's very similar to a placebo effect. Section 3. When data harms health. Now let's explore the dark side of this Stanford study. If believing you're doing well makes you healthier, what on earth happens when your device tells you you're failing? Remember those manipulated watches? The researchers secretly programmed the Apple Watches of another group to show a 40% deflated step count. So if they walked 7,000 steps, the watch only showed 4,200. And wow, when participants thought their step count was low, even though they were walking the exact same amount as before, their activity adequacy mindset just absolutely plummeted. And look at the physiological and behavioral response here. They suffered a literal nocebo effect. Their resting heart rate and mean arterial blood pressure actually increased. On top of that, feeling inadequate completely derailed their motivation, leading to a significant increase in high-fat food intake. Bad data literally harmed their physical health and their dietary choices. Wild, right? Section 4. The Meta-Mindset Shift. This brings us to a really critical pivot. If the raw numbers can either trick us into health or trick us into failure, we have got to take control of the narrative. So to combat this, the researchers introduced a meta-mindset intervention. They actively taught participants the science behind AAM and asked them to deliberately notice and celebrate their everyday physical efforts, things like doing chores or just walking to the store, as valid exercise. When we compare just giving someone an accurate tracker versus giving them a tracker plus this meta-mindset intervention, the results are crystal clear. Consciously reframing our perspective on everyday movement works significantly better. The group that learned to celebrate their movement experienced improved functional health and a massive drop in negative emotions. They didn't just passively stare at the raw data, they totally changed their relationship with it. Section 5. The Habit Stacking Strategy. So we know that mindset matters deeply, but how do we actually implement this positive framing into our busy, frankly chaotic lives? Well, this brings us to an awesome insight from Southwest General Health Center about a concept called habit stacking. Quote, instead of building a new path in your brain from scratch, habit stacking attaches a new habit to a well-worn path. Popularized by behavioral experts like James Clear and BJ Fogg, the science here relies on a part of your brain called the basal ganglia. Your basal ganglia's whole job is to automate repetitive actions to conserve mental energy. Trying to force a massive new fitness routine completely drains that energy. Habit stacking, though, it hacks the system. Let's walk through this brilliantly simple 5-step framework for hacking your brain's existing neural pathways. Step 1. Start with what you know. You find an anchor habit, something totally automatic like brushing your teeth. Step 2. Pick one new tiny habit. Step 3. Link them together using a simple formula. When I do X, I will do Y. Step 4. Keep it incredibly small. Seriously, don't start with a marathon, start with just one stretch. And step 5, which circles right back to our Stanford study, celebrate your wins. That tiny celebration releases a hit of dopamine, which literally locks the behavior right into your brain. Section 6, small steps, big results. Okay, let's actually apply this. We're focusing on small steps that yield big results, especially in our mornings. The morning is usually the most controllable part of our day before all the chaos sets in. Notice how mundane these actions seem, yet how incredibly powerful they are when you stack them. Look at these morning rituals. After you wake up, you drink a glass of water. While you brush your teeth, you think of 3 things you're grateful for. While the coffee brews, you write 1 sentence in a journal. After making the bed, you do a single 1-minute stretch. You see? You aren't carving out an extra hour of your day. You are seamlessly layering micro-habits onto things you're already doing anyway. And remember, celebrating those tiny moments reinforces that activity adequacy mindset we talked about earlier. So the absolutely crucial point of this entire explainer comes down to this one simple equation. Mindset plus micro habits equals a better you. Stressing out over whether your fancy wrist gadget says you hit 10,000 steps, that is not the path to wellness. In fact, it might literally be raising your blood pressure. The real secret here is pairing a positive belief that your daily movements actually matter with the strategic science of stacking tiny habits onto your existing routines. I want to leave you with this final thought. Your health isn't built in giant, exhausting leaps. It's built in the tiny, celebrated moments of your day. So tomorrow morning when you wake up, are you going to let the raw data on your tracker dictate your self-worth and your health? Or will you take control, change your mindset, and stack your own way to a better you? The choice and the science is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I will catch you next time.